Hey everybody, it's Penn's Place. I heard from several of my friends today that Last Epoch or 11th Hour Games had released a news article about Last Epoch's next expansion. Well, I guess season 4 and season 5 and new expansions. And I saw that Raxx had posted a video about it. I kind of wanted to do my own commentary on it because I think that we probably disagree on some stuff. I have watched part of the video, so I do know that there's some stuff that I kind of disagree on, so I wanted to cover it real quick. That being said, Raxx is awesome. I love that guy. If you haven't checked out his content, you definitely should. If you're watching me, there's like literally no chance you haven't already seen him before, so he's awesome. I just disagree with him on some stuff in this video. I'm gonna go ahead and go through it with him, and I'll pause the video several times to talk about some stuff. Just this is my first time doing a react, so we'll see how it goes.
Hi everyone, it's Raxx. We got some huge news about EHG and Last Epoch and Crafton today about the roadmap and the future expansion and whether there's going to be monetization or not. Spoiler alert, there is going to be monetization.
Of course.
And actually, some people from EHG were in my chat that were able to answer some questions when this update dropped. I had no clue this was coming. I had no advance notice of this. So I want to take you through what happened and explain to you the situation. And some people on the internet are kind of mad about it. So at the end, I'd be extremely interested to know what your feelings are on this. And of course, I'll share mine with you as well. All right, here we go. Let's read the post and let's understand the information. And then we're going to have to go over to Paint and we'll draw some pictures and we'll figure out where we're at on this. Real quick update, if you did not know, Crafton, which is the company that's currently going through the lawsuit with Subnautica 2 about paying them $250,000 or not of yet.
Okay, real quick correction. It's not $250,000, it's $250 million that Crafton is currently trying to not pay out to Subnautica 2, and I believe they're going to lose that lawsuit. He probably just misspoke here when he said $250,000. It's $250 million actually. But that's neither here nor there. Although I guess it does paint part of the picture that Crafton needs money. Not that they aren't a big enough company that they can't fit that bill. They just obviously want to recoup that money.
Yeah, I've been following that. Crafton purchased 11th Hour Gaming and Last Epoch back in August, I believe. We don't know the amount. I'll just throw out a number.
The amount was, I believe, $96 or $97 million. That is posted. I think that's public knowledge. But I think he equates it in the video to around $100 million, which is pretty close to correct. But it is a public number.
I don't know the amount. I think it's like $100 million or something. So it's now 100% owned by Crafton and not 11th Hour Gaming. Also, if you did not know this, 11th Hour Gaming in the past has said that they don't plan to have future charges for the expansions or characters.
This is one of the main reasons that a lot of my friends are upset. They have definitely, part of their sales pitch was that it's a box price game. You buy the box price game and then everything in perpetuity is basically free, like a game similar to Path of Exile or something like that, where Path of Exile was even free, so it didn't even have a box price, but their main monetization goal was always to have a microtransaction shop for cosmetics and things like that to try to fund the game, and I don't believe that was going very well for a lot of reasons.
Or anything like that. But now it's not EHG, it's Crafton. So anyway, with that little preface in mind, Last Epoch Season 4 and Beyond expansion paradox classes and the roadmap. Today we're going to get answers to our biggest questions from the community. The first one is, will Last Epoch, will the expansion be free for existing players? And the answer is yes. Anybody who on PC who owns the game before the launch of the expansion gets the expansion as a free update. I did ask them, does that mean it's going to cost money if you don't own it before? And I don't think we got a clear answer on that.
I do want to say real quick, I think their wording here is very intentional. I do believe that they will be charging more for the game once the expansion comes out, just because you're buying a bigger base experience. That is complete speculation on my part, so I don't know for sure. But, I mean, it's a wait and see thing, like much of this video is going to end up being probably.
But new players and PlayStation 5 players, if you purchase Last Epoch, you get all of its seasonal content and the expansion as one updated purchase. So I think what this means is with the expansion, and I asked them this, with the expansion, it should coincide with the PlayStation 5 launch, and you will simply buy the update and its existing game as one purchase.
I believe he's correct there. I believe the day that it launches on PlayStation 5, or at least very near that, will be when the Ouroboros expansion comes out.
Going forward, so it won't be two separate ones for new people going forward. So here's where the monetization comes in.
I just want to say this is where the problems start real bad.
Alongside the free expansion, they're announcing that there's something genuinely new to Last Epoch, a fully alternate playable class built on systems that work differently from anything else in the game. It's called Paradox classes, and the first one will debut alongside the expansion as a paid downloadable content for players who want to explore new playstyles. These classes will let us experiment in new and innovative ways, and we'll have plenty to share as we get closer to the release. We're going to cover this obviously in great detail, and this is the part that is...
Same. I will also obviously be talking about this. I'll wait till he gets to it a little bit later, but whew, that is... I don't love it.
Upsetting people about how there is a paid DLC where previously it was stated that none of this will be paid. And a lot of people are also upset about the fact that it seems to be experimental. So it's almost like we're paying money.
I mean, I'll let him talk in just a second here, but the point he's making is that experimental, he's going to say something about like, oh, you're beta testing stuff and you're paying money to do it. I think that this sentence right here, these classes will let us experiment in new and innovative ways, and we'll have plenty to share when we get closer to release. That is fluff to me. This is a nothing burger. I'm pretty positive they're just saying this to try to justify the fact that they're going to have classes that are now paid. But maybe that's cynical of me. We'll again have to wait and see.
Money to test things, and there's a lot of other things to it we'll get into in a second. So they're going to keep updating Last Epoch for years. That's good news for fans of the game. It's never been a better time to get the game. That's nice. They're going to have 2 more seasons planned before the expansion. So Season 4 will be early 2026. So I guess Season 5 will be mid-2026. So I'm guessing the expansion is going to be late 2026.
Sorry, I know I keep stopping it, but I have lots to interject here. I do think he's probably right about the schedule, and I think that is one of the problems that Last Epoch has, is their pipeline is not very good compared to their competitors. Like, obviously, I mean, it's somewhere in between like a Diablo 4 and a Path of Exile or Path of Exile 2. Those games typically pump out new content in a 3 to 4 month cycle. Last Epoch has so far not been great about delivering on those timelines, and they've also released at really pretty inopportune moments for the success of their game. That has not always been their fault. I'm definitely not blaming 11th Hour Games for that. Some other bigger games have kind of tried to step on their release dates, I feel like, in the past to make them a little bit less successful, which is unfortunate because I do like Last Epoch, and that's actually one of the main reasons I'm making this video, is that I do really enjoy Last Epoch. I think it's got really good bones and that it could grow into something really fantastic. And that's one of the reasons that I am pretty upset about this news. So anyway, I'll let him get back to it.
Logical thinking here. And we're going to have highly requested updates and new seasonal mechanics. And there's going to be teasers and a release date soon.
Sorry, I know I'm interrupting a ton. This is their roadmap. This is a really sad roadmap. All this says is there's going to be a season 4 and a 5 and the launch of the expansion. This has no content. I realize that as they get closer to those things, they will release more information. But if you're going to announce a roadmap, then your roadmap needs to be more than just the things you already knew existed are going to exist. Little bit of feedback. Again, I do really like the game, but your roadmap is nothing. You might as well have not done this, other than obviously, I guess, trying to be transparent with your new monetization tactics. But anyway, sorry.
So we can see the graphics here. Then they want to shorten the time between the seasonal releases. So that's nice. The more often we can
Hopefully.
get content, the better. And they're going to update their internal tools, and they're hiring and onboarding many new team members. They said in their post back in August when they got purchased by Krafton that the money that they were earning would allow them to expand their team. It looks like several months later, this post is reaffirming that idea that they are expanding the team, which should be good news
Probably
for
a
fans
good
of the
thing.
game, right? That can't be bad news. But trying to speed up this would only sacrifice quality. That's a true statement. We don't want faster seasons just to make the game shittier. Also, there's been a lot of discussion around Krafton's recent comments about being AI first and what it might mean for EHG. Our development approach is not changing. They remain focused on building Last Epoch the same way that they always have. So one interesting thing that's at least currently true, which as far as I know, is 11th Hour Gaming is still developing Last Epoch. I mean, this post is literally from Judd, who was the former, I think, majority owner or main owner of Last Epoch. I think the idea is most of the team is still operating and building the game the same way, just with enhanced resources from Krafton. Now, of course, when this was released in August, everyone said, well, Raxx, you can enjoy that for a short period of time, because on these takeovers, eventually always it devolves into something else and everybody gets changed and it loses its identity and it'll never be the same. Could absolutely be true. I'm not denying that, but at least for right now, looks like EHG is still building Last Epoch, which is good news.
This is also part of my concern, what he mentioned here. Much like, I guess, Blizzard and Activision or something like that, a bigger company comes in and buys them. I do feel like this new change is probably... I doubt that EHG was... I doubt they were really excited about the prospect of charging for a class in their game. So I do think that Krafton has applied some pressure here to get them to start to change their monetization to hopefully be more effective. Totally understand that. However, this is the way all of this, the in-shitification of games goes, is, this is your first store mount. It's going to get worse. So, continue. Sorry.
So that's the information that they have. They're focused on the upcoming seasons, da-da-da-da-da. So what does this all mean?
Paint.
Okay, so I guess the main thing to talk about here is the paid, what are they called? Paradox classes?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So let's talk about the paid part here. So there's a lot of different ways to internalize this. So first of all, EHG said that at different points that they are not going to monetize whatever content in the game. And I guess technically, I don't know how particular we want to be here, but the content would be the expansion and different characters to play. Well, I guess that's kind of content, but that might be separate. But EHG said this would not happen. Okay? So there's kind of an issue here. There's a couple different ways to think about this. So EHG doesn't own the game anymore. It's now 100% Krafton. And I don't know the value of how much Krafton paid for it. I don't know if it's public information. So let's just use a number. Let's just say $100 million. It could be $50 million. It could be less. Krafton purchased EHG with the idea of recuperating their money somehow, either directly or in the value of Last Epoch going up. And I think it was also made publicly clear from Judd's previous post about the situation and why they were looking for another company, in that with their current monetization setup, it was not a profitable game. So you might look at a game like Path of Exile and say, well, Path of Exile does it. They don't charge anything for the game ever, and they just sell microtransactions. They're very profitable. Right, but Last Epoch's monetization, I would argue, is a little bit different. And that's because they don't sell stash tabs. They don't sell the map tab. There aren't core pieces of the game that you really need to purchase if you get into the game.
Their microtransactions are also not very good.
In order to enjoy the game. It's really all cosmetic, and if I'm speaking in plain English here, which you guys trust me to do, the cosmetic shop really has not sold the most jaw-dropping things anyway.
He's correct.
So I think that's also another part of the reason why a lot of people haven't truly engaged with it. And then on top of it, when they don't charge for anything else, I don't think that their model had been working to really make the company a lot of money. So either go back on your word about paid stuff or find another source of money. They sold themselves to Krafton.
I also want to point out that their $100 million, 90 something, 97, $96 million sale to Krafton was an overvaluation. That is what they were bought for. That is not what they probably should have been bought for. That company was not profitable. I love EHG, but they were not worth anywhere near that much money. I don't think they were probably worth half that. So that's another reason that Krafton is probably applying a decent amount of pressure here for them to change their tactics, because they need them to become profitable very quickly. So selling for quite a bit of money over their evaluated worth was awesome for them, but also it's a double-edged sword where now they're going to see a lot more pressure than they probably would have. I don't know. It's good and bad, I guess. We'll see.
And Krafton paying $100 million, they expect to recuperate this in some way. So whether that's paid expansions or paid characters or critical things that you need to buy in the microtransaction shop, or tuning up the microtransaction shop for more cosmetics. One way or another, at some point over the next however many years, whatever their plan is, they're going to plan to recuperate some of this money. Now, some of it you could get organically, I'll call it, right? Because now you're releasing the game on console, and hopefully if you just make a great game, new players will buy it in the future. So you could make a lot of it just by sales of the game itself. So that certainly could be a huge piece of it. Maybe that's actually the biggest slice of the pie. But my main thought upon reading this was I was not surprised at all, because I already read the blog post in August. Krafton purchasing this, they are going to be trying to recuperate this $100 million from the consumer into their pockets, one way or another, by some method, with Last Epoch. So it came as no surprise to me. The main thing that shocked me today was not anyone's take on whether they hated it or whether they were okay with it. The thing that shocked me was people were surprised. You think Krafton?
Okay, I do want to address this point. I am surprised, but I am not surprised that they are monetizing the game in a different way. I'm surprised that they are monetizing the game in this specific way. Okay, I'm going to interrupt him real quick and explain my stance on this. They're not charging for expansions, which is great. However, I do understand that they need to increase their monetization. They have to make the game profitable. I totally understand that. Charging for classes, I feel like, is a really bad way to do that. It is an unexpected cost that no one else in the genre does anything like that for. No one's charging you for an extra class unless it is included with an expansion. I do feel like they're going about this the wrong way. If you were to say, here's my expansion for X amount of dollars, $10, $20, whatever it may be, players are fine with that. I'm fine with that. The vast majority of the people that play these games are fine with that because it is a set cost and we know what we're getting. If you say we're going to start charging for paradox classes or whatever you want to make up, that's not okay because, one, we don't know the price. We don't know if they're all going to be the same price. Maybe this first one's $5 and the next one's $20. We also don't know how often that's going to happen. Are you going to start pumping out a new class every league with your new team that's bigger? And then start charging more and more for those things? Is this a slippery slope where you're going to start doing more and more stuff like this where you're barring off content from people based on new costs that we were not expecting? Expansion is an expected cost. Classes, that's not what the market does. PoE doesn't do that. Diablo doesn't do that. None of these other ones charge for a class. It is a bad idea. Anyway, I will let him get back to the video. Who knows what else he's going to say. Let's go.
And bought Last Epoch and wasn't going to change any of the monetization. There was like a 0% chance of that happening. Then there's the other part about the paradox classes, which was listed there, and maybe we're thinking too far into it, but we got to go with what we read, and they said it was experimental is one thing that we can talk about. Another thing we can talk about is the power level.
Okay. The experimental thing, I think I already mentioned it once. I think this is just fluff. I don't know that these classes are going to be that much different. Maybe it's like the Blue Mage in Final Fantasy where it's, it plays crazy different or whatever. However, he's about to talk about the power level. I can guarantee you that the power level will be at least on par with the best other classes in the game, or they would not sell it because most players chase the meta in ARPGs. It would not sell at all if it's like bottom tier weird class that just plays different. I don't think, or it's not going to sell well at least. So I don't know what he's about to say about the power level, but the power level is going to be at least as strong as most of the most powerful builds, and I honestly think it'll be slightly above that. Hopefully it's not like Spiritborn and Diablo 4 crazy, but I do think it will be top tier. It's going to be S tier, almost guaranteed.
So let's talk about the power level first. Power levely. Let's talk about the power level first. Do you remember when the Diablo 4 expansion came out, how the Spiritborn was just light years better than every other class?
Hopefully it won't be that.
Now, I'm 100% sure that the way that played out was certainly not Blizzard's intent. A lot of the power level came from bugs, right? Like evade just triggering, 100 times a second. They had to actually change it, hotfix it in the middle of the season because it was actually crashing the servers. So it's not like it was intentional. But a lot of people today have expressed concerns that whatever these paradox classes happen to be, what if they're just straight up a lot better than the other classes? And what if it's done, let's just assume the worst, maliciously as a way to incentivize people to buy it if they're just meta and they're a lot better than the other.
I wouldn't call that malicious. I would call that marketing. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Other classes. Well, again, maybe this is me being naive, or maybe this is me being an absolute dumbass here, but I would like to think, as EHG developing the game, I have known EHG to be...
This isn't EHG's game anymore. This is Krafton's game.
I know, a quote-unquote ethical company. They have done a pretty good job of balancing things that were completely out of whack in the past. And we've never really ran into the situation where money was involved anyway. But
we're definitely in that
situation now. I would like
now.
to think that EHG will not make the Paradox classes purposely way better than the other ones just to get you to buy the game. If that does happen, it'll be very disappointing. That does not sound like EHG to me, and they're still the ones developing the game.
Charging for classes doesn't sound like EHG to me, is all I'm saying. So on this point, we definitely disagree, unfortunately.
Even though Krafton is the owner. I would be shocked if the Krafton directive was make this better than everything else so we can make money.
I would absolutely not
impossible,
be shocked.
But I doubt it. So I'm not really worried about this. I don't see that happening.
I'm very worried about that. It is one of my main concerns.
Since the EHG team, as far as I know, is almost 100% intact and still the ones making the game. But it is something to consider, and I don't know, if you think I'm wrong, you can tell me what a dumbass I am in the comments.
I don't think he's a dumbass. I love Raxx. I already said that, but I do think he's probably wrong here.
The experimental thing actually has some people pretty upset because they're essentially saying that we're paying to test their game for them. So first of all, I'm certain
there's no way that class is gonna... Experimental just means I assume that it'll operate in a different way. I don't think there's any way that it's gonna be like broken. Well, not in a bad way broken. I don't think there's any way that it's gonna be like this crazy weird broken thing that just no one wants to play. That would be silly.
That it will be tested before it's released.
Yeah.
In the expansion, right? They aren't gonna come up with an idea, YOLO it in the expansion, and sit back and have us do the testing for them and then do
Definitely
the editing.
not.
Certainly. I know some of their testers on their team personally. Certainly they will test it, but I think this experimental word in their blog post has kind of worried some players, and I absolutely understand why. Because it's not even something to do with like Last Epoch necessarily, but there's been so many games that have released not completely finished, and well, we're just trying something and we'll get the community feedback and then we'll fix it. People are really tired of that. People are
I don't think that's what EHG is doing at all. They're not really one of those companies.
really looking forward to, a semi-finished or a polished product,
Craft on either.
especially if they're paying for it, right? And in this case, we actually are paying for the Paradox classes. So I don't know, like, I don't look too deep into this experimental word. I'm sure it will be tested, and I don't know. It's not impossible. They'll give me the opportunity ahead of time, maybe to test it for them. I don't know. I haven't actually ever been a part of Last Epoch testing in the past, but maybe I will be able to get my hands on it a bit early. And if that happens, I will give them my honest feedback. And of course, I will be honest about the power level and whether it actually works in the game. But I think a lot of the news about it being paid is overshadowing the fact that hopefully this is actually just a really cool feature of the game, right? It looks like every time that Last Epoch adds a new mechanic to the game, it's usually a lot of fun. I mean, their quality of life is top tier. Their crafting, a lot of people consider it borderline the best in the industry. They're pretty good at it.
Okay, I do agree with him on most of those points. Their crafting I consider to be best in class. I know people love like PoE crafting. I'm too stupid to do that. It's you need like a PhD to be able to craft effectively in high-end PoE. And then obviously like Diablo basically doesn't have crafting. A bunch of the other games are very, I guess, mid-tier, whatever. I think Last Epoch's crafting is literally the best version of crafting, and he's right about quality of life stuff. Their game, just every time they do a new update, they tend to increase the quality of life in some ways that I didn't even think of, which is pretty crazy in this day and age. So they do a great job of all of that kind of stuff. I'm not concerned about that stuff at all.
Implementing new ideas. I mean, all their skills have entire skill trees attached to them. So when they say they have a cool new experimental thing called Paradox classes, I'm personally pretty excited to see what it is that they're cooking up. But of course, the sour part of it is the fact that it's paid.
I do think that them saying it's experimental or whatever, giving it a fancy name, that I do feel like is just dressing to justify the fact that it's going to be paid DLC. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I hope I'm wrong on that. But I hope they change their business model. I honestly, they need to just, they need to pay, they need to charge for their expansion and not do this charge for class thing. It's a bad move. But let's go.
They said that it wouldn't be. I don't think the roadmap is too surprising. I think they're finally,
That's an
by the
understatement.
way, I believe the next season they said is in January, so it's finally not landing directly on top of, I think, any of the major game releases. So we can play Last Epoch a lot more.
Yay.
I personally appreciate that. Yes,
Same.
of course, as a streamer, but also just as a gamer, man. When they're spread out, man, I can have a lot more fun playing them. I guess people are going to be wondering my overall thoughts on this. The first thing I'll say, is a repeat of the first thing I said when we brought this up. I'm not surprised by this, man.
I mean,
Grafton bought the game and they want to make their money back. They're going to do something. So if you're the kind of person that's going to be very, very upset, which you absolutely have the right to be, about how any of this is going to be paid, it's not going to be good news for you going forward, right? We're not going to get less things to pay for than what we currently have.
Okay, I also want to add, he's right. He's absolutely right. There is going to continue to be more and more monetization for this game with Crafton involved. I'm pretty positive of that. What I would like to see, I've already mentioned that I want them to just charge for expansions a flat rate. And then also they need to step up their microtransaction game in a big way. You look at like some of the supporter packs for PoE or things like that, and those things are like crazy cool with effects and all this extra stuff happening, or spell effects that you can change and things like that. And it's just the ones they're just a lower tier right now. They really need to step up their art game when it comes to those microtransactions, and I think that they'll be a lot more successful. Launching at a time when no other big game is coming out is going to be huge for them. I do think they'll see a much bigger pop or bang for their buck because of that, especially when you drag in the PS5 players. That's going to be obviously a bigger market of people. So I feel like, and I don't know, I haven't seen their books, but I feel like with the increased player base, with better MTX and charging a flat rate for expansions, they would do a lot better than this business model. Um, that's just how I feel about it.
Anything, it'll only be more. So that's how that's going to go for sure. But for me, it's really just, for me, I guess I don't have a strong opinion on it right now because I don't really know what it is. If this
It's a wait and
paradox
see.
class system was an amazing addition to the game, and me putting forth this money, it incentivizes Crafton to keep going with Last Epoch and keeps the EHG employees intact, and it feels like Last Epoch, and the price of it is reasonable. I guess I am okay with it. I'm not super upset by it because I knew this was coming anyway.
My other big concern here is that this is a slippery slope. I've already mentioned it, but I just think that this is the first step towards some really bad monetization practices in general. So I don't want to see them go down this road at all because I think it might lead to some terrible stuff that will kill their game later on.
And I like Last Epoch a lot as a game, and I like EHG, and
Same.
I'm still rooting for them. I
Same.
would still like them to
Same.
succeed. So it'll really depend. If this ends up being a pretty pricey feature, and if it's pretty lame and it's pretty buggy, and if it's way better than every other class, that's going to really start to piss me off because that's
Same.
not really anything about what EHG was originally doing with Last Epoch. It just doesn't remind me of anything Last Epoch-esque if that's how it turns out. So I guess my main answer would be I'm reserving my judgment. I really don't know, but I'm not surprised. And so I guess that's just my main opinion on it. I would genuinely love to know what you think. How do you really feel about this? I will read the comments.
This video
I'll
is how
read
I
them.
really feel about
I
it.
read a lot of the comments on my videos, usually.
Okay, I feel like he's wrapping up. I don't know for sure, but I doubt he has much more to say on the topic. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. But yeah, I think I've made myself pretty clear. If you, for some weird reason, haven't checked Raxx out, I highly recommend you do. He's awesome. Great source for guides and things like that. He's super well informed about Last Epoch, PoE, PoE2, sometimes Diablo 4 when he doesn't hate it, things like that. But thanks for watching. If you did, appreciate it. You guys have a great day.